well, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from England, so I've worked a little bit with adult developmental disabilities over there.
Okay.
And I had maybe an 18-month interval of not working in that field, and I sort of wanted to get back to it. So when I moved to Cincinnati, I looked up on the website what OVRS was about and decided to apply. Yeah, I met 6 residents, and I always wish I'd written down my first impressions, because I think my first impressions are actually quite inaccurate. For example, somebody who I might think was very difficult on the first day actually proved to be quite an easy person to work with in the end, whereas other people who sort of had a very pleasant manner and seemed very calm and kind of collected, actually you got to know after a while they have their own little foibles, their own sort of things that they want to be done their way. So I kind of wish I'd written everything down on my first day, and then I could sort of say, oh no, that's wrong, I mean, you get to read through their files, so you get to read some of their sort of biography, but it's certainly not consistent. I mean, it's things like, in 1986, this person had this assessment and this is what they said, and then you jump forward 8 years or something, but there's no little, page long or 2 pages biography, where you could perhaps, the manager maybe could write down what somebody did at a different time. That would have been useful, yeah, definitely. I think one of the first people I worked with, I'm not going to mention any names, but he was somebody who liked to, cuss and shout a great deal, and you actually got to realise eventually that this was just his way of introducing himself to somebody, being friendly in a way, was to, sort of swear about a situation or something. This person was actually very easy to deal with, I thought, in the end. I suppose he would have, first night I might have found that a little bit frightening, listening to him in another room sort of shouting and yelling and stuff. I think it takes patience. I mean, you're not going to get very far if you've got a list of things to do and these have to be done really quickly and really fast. If you're trying to support somebody doing something themselves, then you're not going to get very far if you don't have much patience. If you're looking at the clock thinking, well, these 5 things should have been done by now and they haven't, then that's not going to be the right sort of mentality necessarily. I think it also takes knowing how you interact with each individual, because I think sometimes you have to accept that you're going to react. I mean, it's my personal opinion is that you're going to interact better with some people than others, and you can work on the other people, but I think there's some people who you sort of understand their motivations, you understand the way they think, and I don't think people should be too hard on themselves. I don't think people should expect to understand every single individual as well as the other, or if you're having a tough time with somebody and you think, well, why can't I have a better time with them? I mean, that's okay, but part of the reason might be your personal dynamic with them. They've taught me a lot of things, really. I mean, I think they've taught me about how they interact with each other. Having known certain, personalities within the organisation, that if you put one person with another person in a house, it would be a nightmare from the get-go. And I think I have more appreciation of how they interact with each other, maybe. And they've taught me about that dynamic between themselves, which I don't think I had as much of an understanding when I started. I think I feel enlightened. I think I'd choose that word. So, yeah. Just not to think that, you might think when you're looking over something like meds, you're being really pedantic, that it's taking a long time and you should really be getting through this quickly. But just to make sure that you get obviously the right name, right time, right route, and all the rest of it. It might feel like a long process, but it's actually worth doing, because of course, getting the right meds to the right people is really crucial. So, even though it feels like it's a bit laborious, a bit, you're being a bit pedantic, it's actually worthwhile doing that. I think not to take things too personally, probably. I think there's a lot of conflicts that I've kind of just let ride past me rather than engaging with them. I think, obviously if there is something you really feel strongly about, then it's worth engaging in a conflict. I mean, I'm not saying that, but I do think 9 times out of 10 it's kind of worth letting it just wash over you a bit. And I would also say if you have a certain set of skills, and other people in the house have a certain set of skills. So if you enjoy cooking and you like cleaning and that sort of thing, and somebody else likes being out in the car and being out in the van and doing things with the residents in the community, then please recognise that both skills are necessary. That it's not just because I have this certain tendency that I tend to do these things in the house. That's not the only thing. There are actually other things that go on. Things that you might not feel comfortable doing yourself, but they're still necessary, I think. I think just try and be as open as possible, really. I think just communicate something that went badly, because most supervisors will try and get you to work out how it went badly, or sort of work with you to work out how it could go better in the future. I don't think on the whole, I don't think there's an atmosphere of condemnation with the supervisors. I think they're very much there to help you out. So. Well, something like, what we talked about earlier, sort of a short biography would be really useful, I think. Especially if you're going to work in a house with 6 individuals, and you could find out what happened to them. I mean, you can find out all this stuff by looking through their files anyway, but it would be a sort of more edited version where you can find it out quickly. That would be useful. Because I think they enable people to live as independently as possible. They sort of bridge the gap between what an individual can't quite achieve and what they can achieve, and I think they assess, let's say somebody's very good at making a cup of tea, but they couldn't necessarily make a meal, but they could perhaps cut up some of the vegetables along the way, and just assessing that ability level with the residents. And I think the DSPs kind of bridge that gap and make sure things run okay. Well, I think you need to be realistic, and sometimes you might want to edit this out, but sometimes guardians can be a bit unrealistic about the goals of the people there, whether it's son or daughter or whatever. They can be unrealistic about what they're going to achieve in a certain time, and the individual might even want to have that goal in reality, and they might go to a meeting and say, oh yes, this is my goal, but really it's because I want to please my guardians, so I think you have to sort of set look at it realistically, and see if somebody has a goal. Let's say they want to walk a mile every day, and let's say they walk half a mile. I mean, that's not nothing. That's some way along the process. It's not the same as they just sat there and did nothing and didn't react to your prompts. So just recognise that you might not get exactly what you want first of all, but you can gradually build up to it with an IP, I think, definitely.